War Within is just around the corner, but what should you play in the new expansion? Something that does the most damage because you just got dumped, so why not abuse the crap out of some bosses to vent? The most fun spec because who cares about performance? You aren't even using a DPS meter, you rascal you. Or the easiest, then for sure. That way you can focus on mechanics and play with one hand while chugging on a cold one with the other. Let me help you out then as we look at the range DPS specs for the next expansion. To be fair with you right now, easy, fun, or most damage is relative. The first two criteria are very subjective and individual, although there is some objective fun we will be talking about in this video, while DPS is something that can change overnight. No, really, in the last PTR we had for 10.2, Assassination Rogue was looking to be the best boss killer in the game with a Kingsbane playstyle. Then just before the patch released, it was nerfed and it ended up as the least performing rogue spec. However, the specs I will talk about today are very likely to have at least above average damage output. And you cannot play any range DPS in WoW, let alone the War Within, without a proper gaming keyboard, and this video's sponsor. And I am talking about the SteelSeries Apex Pro, the world's fastest keyboard, so fast that it does the entire combustion window all on its own. It has 20 times faster actuation and 11 times faster response than any traditional mechanical keyboard. With the ultimate control options, you have a range of over 40 levels of per key actuation from 0.1 millimeters to 4 millimeters. With this, you can set how hard or how soft you have to press down on your keys for that spell to get out. I set my WASD keys to 0.4 millimeters so that movement is super crisp when I dodge the fire on the ground. It's fully customizable and stupidly fast with the OmniPoint 2.0 adjustable hypermagnetic switches. Not to mention, for those intense and plus keys, the rapid trigger eliminates the latency arising from the physical movement of the switch with a dynamic activation and deactivation of keys based on the travel distance rather than a fixed point in the key travel. With a USB pass-through covering its OLED smart display as well, you'll get all the juice you need for what has become the best and my favorite gaming keyboard since the typewriter. We cannot recommend Apex Pro enough, and you haven't played video games proper until you had one of these babies to give your fingers the power to blast your DPS meters. Thanks SteelSeries for sponsoring this video, and to get yours, make sure to click the link down below and apply the promo code Marcelian to get 10% off of your purchase. Starting with Fire Mage might be the safest thing we can do. It has been meta almost every season, and when it wasn't, it was either really good or had an off-spec that pushed the content, like Frost Mage in raids right now, or Arcane overall. I believe Arcane was even used in the Race World first in 10.2. This is something to think about if you are the kind of player that is afraid for their main if they are not meta, although I wouldn't suggest to play in any environment where the choices of your spec can be met with discrimination. Guilds that make players pick a particular spec because they saw a streamer or esports team use it end up hurting themselves more and the respective player as well. That aside, Fire is just on another level. In terms of spec design, we here at MarcelianOnline consider it the perfect spec in the game. This is purely from the technical standpoint. If certain spells or talents are over or under-tuned, well, then that is what it is, and hopefully they get some attention. But as far as picking Fire Mage, opening up your spellbook and talent tree, it all makes sense. As you put points into your tree, whether it is because you boosted your character, swapped from Frost or Arcane, or even leveled from scratch, you slowly start to figure out what's what. Here you have Phoenix Flame stuff. Here you have Living Bomb stuff, and there you have all of your Fire Blast stuff with all the Flame Strike talents right over here. Which one do you want to play with? They all have options for single target encounters, multi-target encounters, and both. You can opt to have Giga priority damage and then just cleave some damage on the rest of the mobs, or press Flame Strike and let time decide if your fat overall DPS is a problem or not. Not only that, you can simplify your playstyle if you don't want to rack your brain too much, since this is a video game after all. With stuff like Quick Flame, you eliminate the gameplay restrictions of Flame Patch. With spontaneous combustion, you don't have to worry about optimizing your charges of Fire Blast or Phoenix Flames for your upcoming combustion window, since you get all of them anyway, while Unleashed Inferno gives you more combustions without having to figure out when and how to hard cast a Pyroblast, risk having to interrupt that cast, or completely mismanage your Sun King stacks. The same can be said about the hero talent as well. Sun Fury is likely the one that winks at you the most, and that's because Sun Fury is the lady in red, very hard not to notice or turn away from. You generate Spellfire Spheres over the course of the fight, and when you use your combustion, you summon a Phoenix that blasts your enemies. For each sphere you have, your Phoenix will cast either a Greater Pyroblast or Arcane Surge, and your spheres can be a mechanic you manipulate to change some stuff as you play. Frostfire, on the other hand, is going to be simpler. It will be like driving your car, and occasionally it will turn into a Bugatti for a few seconds, becoming much faster to play. Things will happen more often, and you will feel like you drank your first coffee of the day, only it was spiked with 3 milligrams of epinephrine. Congratulations, you can now see sounds and also understand how to divide by 0. Fire Mage is a banger, a contender for my personal main, and if you ever have to off-spec, Arcane and Frost are almost just as amazing while being just a button away. Ever wondered what it would be like to order a pizza that had 1 slice margarita, 1 full cheese, 1 pineapple, and 1 with a red Murloc on, all while not being judged by anyone because, unlike you, they are too busy still watching this video to see how much fun you are having. That is Demonology Warlock, the spec in the game that gives you all flavor of demons, from the standard and respectable to the downright weird and degenerate. And all can be yours if you would just stop caring about what your doctor said. In terms of actually building your Demonology Warlock, the benefits are similar to Fire Mage. You have a lot of diverse talents and flavors of the spec based on what demons you want to use, and they all have both AoE and single target applications. Not only that, you have an extra factor of cool, dialed up to 11, with a new Doom talent and the reworked Vile Fiend. Doom is essentially what you think Demonology is supposed to be if you only have been playing really good fantasy games so far. One button adds so many gameplay implications that it makes it ridiculous we ever had any other version of this talent. It does damage, it generates shards, it spawns the biggest of the baddest of the demons, it resets and rinse and repeats. The new Vile Fiend is a mini cooldown and can transform into one of 2 hounds. Gloomhound is going to be your boss killer. It will hit its target with a strong slash attack, while Charhound will remind people why it is not good to leave your oven running when you go on vacation. And if all these extra demons you have to interact with sounds annoying and too much, simply go with all of these Felguard talents that will buff your main demon to Sargeras levels, and it will all be passive and work with your tier set. And we haven't even touched on the hero talents. Dude, Diabolist will be your favorite way to play Warlock, and you might be, yeah man, I get it, it has the best animations and does giga damage. But you don't understand. If they ever remove these talents from the game once the World Soul Saga is out, you will have to stop playing video games since nothing will ever be the same. If you think I'm overreacting, you clearly haven't seen this Pitlord channeling his demon magic while you summon a demonic meteor to delete pixels from the video game. Hellcaller's alright, I mean you do broken damage, it's good, I don't know, might get nerfed because OP meta Exodia Yu-Gi-Oh! Trap card. For amazing fun multiple playstyle builds and likely a high DPS spec in Season 1, cannot go wrong with Demo.
Dracarys.
I said...
Dracarys.
No, I don't think you understand. What I meant was...
Dracarys!
Ah, if only Draktheirs would be real dragons. But don't let that stop you, because you would be missing out on devastation in the War Within. Despite not resonating with the visual representation of the spec, the gameplay was always fun, albeit a tad bland in Dragonflight. That changes in the War Within, mostly because of the hero talents. The Spectre is fine, and it will continuously undergo changes just as Demon Hunters got as the class gets more tenure. It could use a bit more diversity in its builds, but that's where Scale Commander and Flame Shaper come in. Everything that you ever thought was cool about dragons can be summarized in one ability: Deep Breath. This is the coolest shit Evoker does visually, and with Scale Commander it will be a bigger part of your gameplay. The interactions you get from it, with how explosive it can make your rotation, makes you ironically feel like more of a dragon than ever. Of course, Mass Disintegrate isn't bad either, and swapping your resource spender around based on how many targets you are fighting adds a level of engagement to the spec that wasn't present before. And as for build diversity, that's where Flame Shaper comes in. It feels like it's something that should be baseline, but Flame Shaper enables you to use talent particularly focused around Firestorm that you wouldn't normally use. That's likely because Firestorm was nerfed too hard during Dragonflight beta and never buffed back, making you play the same build for 2 years. Swapping that around with the hero talents is very welcome, and at the end of the day, it's just because Firestorm and its talents are super fun. Pair these up with the dot playstyle of Engulf and the general hero talents and you have a new flavor of devastation you haven't played. If anything, it's very dragony in the way you set fire to pretty much everything. If Dracthyrs would also look like actual dragons, World of Warcraft would have more players than League of Legends, which ironically lets you play with actual dragons. The overall gameplay is very simple and engaging. You get a lot of procs and all of your damage is mega explosive. Whichever dragon fantasy you want to enact, whether it is the soar over the battlefield as a Scale Commander or burn all your enemies to bits as a Flame Shaper, Devastation is the way. And if you want to know how these specs rank against all the other ranged DPS in the game, you have to check our tier list on it, since we played all of them already on beta with the tier set, and it was a nice experiment for science.